Hey, you guys, welcome back to Heal, Survive, and Thrive. It is an early morning here. If you guys hear roosters in the background, my neighbors have roosters. To some people, this is not country living, but to me it is because I lived so close to Boston right before we moved here. So having chickens and roosters crowing, I mean, there was like a fox on the street the other day. There's been coyotes in the backyard. I sometimes have deer in the backyard. So it's so zen and peaceful here. So I love doing the podcast like first thing in the morning. You parents know the minute the kids get on the bus, it's like, okay, if you have that commute to work where you kind of listen to your music, your podcast, whatever, or you just get so like, I get so much done first thing in the morning. It's kind of like I get ready for the day. I have my zen time. I put my makeup on and I just like sit in my office and just enjoy the quiet for a minute. So I kind of really I've been in like a little routine of just getting up, getting dressed, and doing the podcast because I don't know. I just feel like it's like a great let's have a conversation kind of time during the day. So I'm glad you're here. So we are I was thinking about like different topics for this month, and you guys always send me your ideas and all that stuff, and by all means keep it coming. Like, what do you want to hear from me? What's going on in your life? Even when I do like lives or Q&As, like that's the first thing, like, hey, what's going on with you? How's life? Where are you struggling? Yada yada. But I've noticed recently that in the last year I've made a little bit of a shift in like some of the content that I put out, because I realized that majority of my audience is obviously women. So some of the things that I'll talk about are specific to not necessarily even just being a woman, but being a heterosexual woman. So what I primarily talk about is being with a man. So I'll talk about male narcissists. I'll talk about, just anything having to do with that kind of situation. And I feel like a lot of guys that do follow me, because I do have male followers as well, just get so offended when I talk specifically about men. I cannot tell you how many times in the comments anywhere, whether it's like YouTube, social, I will get a comment saying, well, women do it too, and women do. And I'm just like, I know women do it too. So I figured today we're going to dedicate some time to the guys, and we're going to talk about women, because I know you guys out there get really frustrated and I just feel like there's just not a lot of content specifically to men that are in relationships with women. So we tend to think like the woman is the victim and the guy is the one that's all kinds of screwed up and unhealthy. And of course not. Like, of course, there's sick and twisted women out there. There are women that are completely toxic, completely unhealthy. So let's have a chat. Like, let's talk about it actually, because whatever you're into, whether it's men, women, doesn't matter. Everything's all relevant. You obviously have to just apply it to your life. But I figured let's actually talk about female narcissism for a second here. Let's break all of it down. We're going to talk about traits. We're going to talk about how to spot this person. But you know me, like I'm really big on always talking about what specifically you're going through in your relationship with this person, how to protect yourself, your own wounds, your own triggers that she has done to you, that she triggers you, how she has treated you, and not even just her, but obviously going back to every relationship that you've ever been in. Let's talk about mom. Let's talk about the past. Let's talk about how you're programmed. Let's talk about your wounds, your insecurities, all the things. So today I figured kind of have like a little cheat sheet in front of me so we can kind of check all the boxes, because I want to make sure that we're hitting everything and we're talking about everything in terms of this. And obviously if you're a woman listener, a female listener, you can listen to this too, because we're going to talk about moms that are narcissists. We're going to talk about sisters. We're going to talk about friends, all the things. I had a guy last night, actually this morning, I was like replying to comments on YouTube because I had posted a video yesterday, and I'm replying to this comment, and this guy said, there's so many great psychiatrists and doctors that talk about narcissism and they have an understanding and it's not just a word that people use. Here's what I want to say to this, because I will always talk about narcissism because it was a huge part of my awakening, a huge part of, so many aspects of my life. I don't care, quite frankly, if someone is diagnosed with NPD. Like, I don't need to see a test from a professional in order for me to know that what you're doing is not okay. So I think the narcissism thing it obviously gives us a little validation. It helps us understand something a little better, but it's more about emotional abuse. It's more about just learning who a person is and what they do that's unhealthy, and not just that person, but obviously yourself as well. So I said to the guy, I said, look, when I started, there weren't a lot of therapists, psychiatrists that were doing what I do. It wasn't even a lot. It was just primarily coaches. And then there was like a few people here and there that just weren't coaches whatsoever, that just wanted to obviously talk about their own personal experiences. Now I feel like there's so many psychiatrists and doctors and lawyers that are talking about these things, not just the coach, so to speak. So I broke it down and I'm like, look, here's the thing. First off, I've coached therapists, I've coached psychiatrists, I've coached doctors. So I don't think you having a degree really warrants you to fully understanding something. Yeah, you're going to fully understand something in terms of, yeah, will you be able to diagnose someone? Will you be able to write a prescription? All of those things? Absolutely. But from what I talk about is not just about me giving you the traits that are within the DSM that the doctor, the psychiatrist, the whoever has studied. It's also about your own stuff. It's about healing you, not just focusing on this other person. So I think where I see it, whether it's the lawyer, whether it's the psychiatrist, the doctor, and all of those things, is it's general information, and we're not talking about how to actually fix a problem. So if you want general information of what does it look like for this person to be narcissistic or whatever, all of what's borderline personality disorder, what does it mean for someone to actually be psychotic, all of these words that we use, by all means, first off, you can chat GPT it, but by all means, go to the doctor, go to the psychiatrist. And to some extent, it actually really does help. The problem is that unless you've been through this, you don't really understand what a person will go through having been in these kind of relationships. So I can learn something, but until I've experienced it myself and I can be able to give you the empathy and the compassion that you need and not just tell you to like get over it or that this shouldn't bother you, nothing's going to really change. And it's the same thing with even like your past and your wounds and all of that kind of stuff. I can tell you can go to a psychiatrist, you can go to a doctor, and they can tell you, yep, you're codependent. Yep, this happened to you in childhood. And yep, this was a trauma. And you can go, oh, that was trauma? Okay. And so you can start understanding it. But the problem that I think most people have is that person 99% of the time, because they have to do the work themselves in order to actually teach this to someone else and help someone, is at a certain point, everyone gets stuck where they're like, okay, I've gone to therapy, I've seen a psychiatrist, I've done this, and all of that is absolutely great. And it helped me for sure. But there is an aspect of moving on, how to actually move on, how to actually heal from something, how to actually rebuild your life, rebuild your inner confidence, learn mental health, learn what it means to actually take care of myself every day, to set goals, to move myself forward. So to me, coaching has always been about moving forward. Whereas, a psychiatrist, a therapist, of course, they'll be able to diagnose something. And maybe that's exactly what you need, is to be able to say, yep, this person is narcissistic, in order for you to feel okay. Even though I do think that your mind's just playing tricks on you, because you could absolutely get the diagnosis, but that's not going to heal your heart. It's just going to make sense in your mind as to what's happening. So being able to heal your heart is more of the inner work that you have to do. And it's not spirituality and it's not fluffy stuff. It is mental health. So that's why I will always talk about narcissism, because this was the turning point in my life where I said, okay, I have to take care of myself. I have to learn what it means to be healthy. I have to learn what it means to be in a healthy relationship. I have to go to my past and figure out all that stuff. But I also have to look at my future and start understanding how to set goals and plan things. So total digress. I just went on a rant with that one. But I do think it's important because, yeah, we hear this term a lot in the last, for sure, probably, 4 to 5 years. But it's a term that is very important, and you have to really listen to the person that you're listening to, whether it's an influencer, a coach, a therapist, or whatever. And I don't want to say take it with a grain of salt, but every person's going to give you something, right? So it's not like you're just going to go to one person and that's it, and that person's going to completely heal you and fix you. Maybe, but I do think that that's very rare. So sometimes we think that the doctor knows best, when sometimes, honestly, It's a person who's just gone through it, been through enough experiences with it, knows it really well, and has also done the work to overcome it. Like, that's the biggest thing at the end of the day. If you're in AA, chances are your sponsor is not someone that is a psychiatrist or has studied alcoholism. No, usually it's a person that's probably gone through the same thing as you and it has actually gone through it and knows what it feels like to go through what you're going through. So just a little disclaimer there on that one. I really feel like I had to kind of give a little shout out for that. But anyways, let's get into all of this. I know when most of us think of narcissism, we tend to obviously think about a man because that's just what majority of the content that's out in the world has been. And it's obviously not the case. We all know there can be a female narcissist out there. So I just want to break down, the traits. We're going to go through a little bit of that, but I want you to be able to spot this really quickly. And I want to also at the end, I want to talk about the stuff going on inside of yourself that makes you, number one, attracted to this person, makes you want to go toe to toe with this person, makes you not really have the best boundaries around this person. Those are the things that are going to help you, not just in whatever relationship that you're in right now with this person, but even going forward as the trash trucks are outside picking up my trash. Today is just like the day of noises, I feel like, around this house. Anyways, so number one, let's talk about the real basics. Okay, this is like the basic stuff that we hear everywhere. Grandioso. What does that mean? That means that I just think I'm important. I think that I'm the center of attention. I think that I need to just own the room. Manipulation. This person, she is used to using things like guilt, shame, in order to control you to then get what you want, to get what she wants out of you. The lack of empathy obviously is like the key thing. So the only way we can really see if someone doesn't have empathy, because we've all been there, especially if we're dealing with someone who's a little covert. We have all been there. And this is where it kind of screws us up as the, victim, is that it appeared that this person had empathy at points in my relationship. So now how can I ever really tell the difference between someone who is empathetic, that has empathy, versus someone who doesn't? All right, well, here we go. First off, empathy is something that means that I'm able to put myself in your shoes. So if I can put myself in your shoes, and I may not always do it right then and there because I have an ego and I'm wounded myself. So everyone's going to come to the table in a relationship with anyone, whether it's a friendship, parent, romantic, they're going to come to the table if they're not healed from their wounded self, which means I need validation. I need you to agree with me. I need to control what you think. I need you to just do what I say so I don't feel uncomfortable. So those are all unhealed people, whether you're narcissistic or not. When you are dealing with an unhealed person that is not narcissistic, at some point, very soon after a disagreement, for example, that person is going to have been able to self-reflect, to admit that, okay, I didn't do this right, or okay, I can see your point. Now this example is both people are unhealed, wounded, but not narcissistic. So when that can happen, there's no control, right? There might be a little control in the beginning of that disagreement, but there's no control throughout the course of their relationship. They can see that, yep, I was wrong here, or yes, I could have done this better. And then they actually start doing something different next time. So change actually happens. So that's first off. When you're dealing with someone who's narcissistic, that isn't going to happen because, of course, what? There's no accountability. There's no taking responsibility. There's no real change on their part. They might say that, I know I'm flawed. I know I can be an arrogant, son of a bee sometimes. Like, I know all of those things, but nothing changes in their personality. So someone can be self-aware as to what's wrong with them, but whether or not they actually change it, that's really the determining factor. So when we're talking about empathy, what we want to be able to determine is the pattern that happens in my relationship with you. What does that look like? And if it is something where you just are never able to ever put yourself in someone else's shoes to understand that person, no matter who it is, whether it's me, a stranger on the street, the waitress, whatever, then you have a person that just lacks empathy. So that obviously is the number one trait within all of this, because everyone can be a little grandiose. Everyone can kind of walk in a room and sometimes be a little arrogant or a little self-righteous or a little whatever, but it is the empathy piece that makes this an actual disorder. Obviously, if you have, I want to say it's like 6 of the 9 traits within the DSM under narcissism, then the likelihood of this person actually having a personality disorder is very high, but it is, I mean, it's like if the lack of empathy is there, really just kind of pushes you into that disorder category, whether it's narcissism, borderline, etc. A female has this inability to appear very confident, but is extremely insecure. Now, we can all put on masks, okay? We can all put on a front. We can all pretend like we're something, but inside we know that we're just that like insecure little girl that just doesn't feel good enough. There is for sure jealousy piece to her. So she can't be around someone who's doing so much better than her, but she also can't necessarily always be around someone who's at the bottom of the barrel. Now, you might be dealing with a person that very much does want to be with someone or around people that are at the bottom of the barrel because it makes her feel like she's enough. And this is where the insecurity and the jealousy comes in. Or you could be dealing with someone who, I don't want you to even go above me whatsoever. So she really does need to be around people that she deems she's better than. Maybe she can have one or two people that are kind of on her level, but again, she's going to really pick that person apart at some point in her relationship, whether it's you or a friendship or a sister or whatever. She's going to pick that person apart a little bit so she can kind of bring them back down so she can feel good about herself. The way someone carries themselves in terms of not just like a grandiose personality, but also that entitlement piece, like I deserve special treatment, like things need to change because of me. I'm going to ask this because I'm just going to ask and see if it happens, which some of that is like a good thing. But the other piece is when you know it's not about asking, it's about you just shouldn't ask. It just is inappropriate to ask. That's the entitlement. And that is something that very much happens, especially if you're dealing with an overt female narcissist for sure. But it's this, I want more. And again, wanting more is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just all about how you go about it. It's about not a little bit of special treatment that you're narcissistic. No, that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about consistent patterns within a person. So have there been times where maybe you or I felt a little entitled? Maybe, but is that the consistent pattern that you or I have? Absolutely no. Is there a time where maybe we should have asked for some special treatment and we just didn't because maybe we were like scared of what someone would think or we were being a little codependent? Yes. And that's unhealthy too. But the consistent pattern is that maybe I need to ask a little bit more, and not that I ask all the time. And I need to also be able to read a room and just take a step back and just deal with the fact that I'm not getting what I want in the way that I want it. And that's okay. A huge part of narcissism is the inability to soothe themselves when they don't get what they want. So think of a child that every single time that child threw a tantrum or acted out or whatever, that parent or both parents and gave that child what it was that she wanted. So this child learns every single time I want something, if the answer is no, all I need to do is this and this. I'm going to try these couple of things. One of them is going to work eventually. So I'm just going to keep going until I get what I want. This is the way this person is programmed. So it's not necessarily that this person's like a horrible human being. It's that this is the way that they're programmed. They have absolutely no idea. And frankly, you had absolutely no idea. You had no idea that when this person didn't get what they wanted, all they had to do was this and this, 1, 2, and 3. And eventually one of those things would be the thing that would make you feel uncomfortable, that you would conform and give this person what they wanted. So it is about learning, okay, well, what are the tactics? What are the defense mechanisms? What are the things that this person will do with me, with her sister, with her friend, whoever, when she doesn't get her way, when she's uncomfortable? And there's two things. I just said she didn't get her way and she's uncomfortable. So it's not always about not getting your way. It could just be when I'm uncomfortable. So when am I uncomfortable? I'm uncomfortable when I don't get your validation, when you don't soothe me in the way that I want to be soothed, when you don't make me feel like I'm enough, like when you're not giving me all of the things that I should be giving myself. So of course we want to be in relationships where we feel seen, we feel heard, someone can remember who we are and help uplift us when we're forgetting. Absolutely. But you have to give that to you first. That can't be something that you expect everyone to do for you. Like we're just going to pick you up and just drag you along the world, this life journey, and give you everything that you need. And we're just going to walk on eggshells around you so you're cozy. That's not how it works. So, and we all know this, but do we go off into life and do we behave that way? Or do we behave entitled, a little narcissistic, wounded, looking for validation, all of those things? Yeah, that's usually how we kind of show up in life. So here's the problem is that when she gets uncomfortable, she does this. When she doesn't get her way, she does this. What are those things? Is it gaslighting? Is it shutting down? Is it silent treatment? Like, what is it that she does when she's uncomfortable? This is what we're trying to learn first. It's called know thy enemy. So know the person that you're dealing with so you know how to handle yourself when you're around this person. This isn't about knowing who they are so then you can teach them how to change or you can help them. Like, no, we don't got time for that because life is hard enough and you're working on yourself. You don't need another project. So, but what you do need to do is learn who this person is. So when they do this thing, number one, you expect it. When you expect something, it becomes the norm and it's not something that shocks you or that you're uncomfortable by. Now, when I say the norm, I don't mean that the norm is acceptable. I just mean that you know what's coming and it doesn't throw you off. So you won't really get really triggered by this person if you can see what it is that they do when when they're not getting their way, they feel uncomfortable. So knowledge is power. That's why this is so important. Let's talk about the differences, and to me, after doing this for so long, and if you guys have been with me for a while and you've already, you're working on yourself and you're doing your thing and you're watching all these videos and you're learning all this stuff because there's so much content out there now compared to when I started back in like 2017, that there is a huge difference between how this person goes about living their life, like how they operate in the world, right? So we've heard the terms overt, covert. Okay. And I'm going to just break it down very basic just for the people that are like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now. What does that word even mean? Okay. Overt. An overt narcissist, really, whether it is a male or a female, doesn't really matter, is more of very obvious. Like, the person that walks in the room and you're just like, you can just see the narcissism everywhere. It's all about me. I think I'm amazing. And I don't mean someone walking into a room and feeling super confident in themselves where you're like, look at that person. Like, they're healthy. Like, look at them. Like, they're super confident. Like, God, I'm kind of like jealous. Like, I want to be like that someday. I'm not talking about that because this person is not loud. They're calm. They're quiet. They're confident. They know how to speak. They articulate themselves very well, and they slow down when they speak. I mean, all of these, they set goals, they slowly achieve them. Like, they just have this like aura to them that it's just such contagious energy that you just want to be around. Okay. That's what the feeling is when you're around the healthy, confident person. When you're with I'm going to put confident in quotations here, person that is wounded and narcissistic, then it's loud, it's look at me, it's I'm the best thing in the room, it's belittling people, like making these little like jabs at you just to kind of like bust your balls a little. It's just this like ick, arrogance, and you can just, and if you're a little bit more of an old soul, a little enlightened, you can smell this a mile away. I couldn't smell it, so I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. But it's very obvious, right? So the overt is more in your face, whereas someone who is covert is more looking like you, unfortunately. And that's the really tricky part, is we can very much spot the overt. It doesn't mean we're going to not be attracted to that person, because there might be something about this person, this like overt personality, this like confidence that this person has, this ability to talk to people and like, win a room over and just go from like Joe to Paul to Sue to Carol, like all of these things. And you're just like, look at them. So it's that charismatic type of personality, that charming personality that can very much win you over. When you're attracted to unhealthy confidence, when you're attracted to healthy confidence, you're going to smell it a mile away, and you're not going to be interested whatsoever. So the overt is a little bit more trickier because you're dealing with a person who looks like you, sometimes behaves like you. That's harder to spot. So the problem with all relationships is, and we forget this sometimes because we get very comfortable with people, whether it's family members, friendships, romantic, it doesn't matter, is your entire life, no matter who's in your life. I don't care if someone's been in your life for 20 years, 50 years, like no one cares. Your job is to not just allow people in your life that are unhealthy and for you to allow unhealthy behavior. So when you work on yourself, you get super healthy, which means that I fully take care of myself. And you kind of have learned and accepted, because you're no longer living this naive, childlike, wounded type of mentality, that it is my job to take care of myself and everyone in my life, even though I want amazing people in my life, good people in my life, that they're not there to fix me, to heal me, to soothe me 24 hours a day. I mean, really, they're only there to do it 20% of the time. I'm supposed to be doing it majority of the time, as often as I can. When you adopt that kind of mentality, attitude, and you really start working on yourself and you start healing, you're first off, you're not obviously attracted to this type of person, but you can see patterns in people. So when we're talking about someone who is a covert narcissist, where they look like you, they smell like you, it's the average Joe, the average girl, like she's not in your face narcissistic. There's just these like little things that she's doing that sometimes maybe even you do, right? She appears to give a little empathy. She appears every now and then to be a little victim, maybe just like you, all those things. So as you're working on yourself and you're in this relationship with this person, I don't care if it's 5 years or 10 years, when they start to slip and you start to see, we're not going to even call it narcissistic traits. Like, who cares? We're going to call it unhealthy patterns. I'm not going to even use the word toxic, because I feel like even that word is like triggering people. Everything's toxic. Fine. Is unhealthy better? Like, okay, unhealthy patterns. I mean, there are just unhealthy people out there. There are people that just operate in unhealthy ways, and you do as well. But I digress. I don't understand why everyone's so sensitive to these words nowadays. But you know what? I'm just going to say toxic. When they show up in these toxic ways, you're going to spot it. Now, remember, if you've been in this relationship for 5, 10, 20 years, when they start slipping and you're like, whoa, and they start maybe like the mask is coming off and you're seeing a little something, their tactic, their defense mechanism, when they don't get their way, when they feel uncomfortable. So remember, overt, when I don't get my way, when I feel uncomfortable, I do this. When I'm covert and I don't get my way and I feel uncomfortable, I do this. A lot of what a covert will do is guilt. Feel bad for me, have sympathy for me, give me this because I'm really struggling. They have an inability to take responsibility. Same thing as an overt, but the covert has an inability to take responsibility for themselves, and you can see it. Now, remember, when you're healthy and you're working on yourself, someone who doesn't take responsibility for themselves and just puts the blame on everyone else or everything else, that's not attractive. That's not something that you're going to be into anymore, because you don't operate in that way. You're not a victim. Even if you had been a victim at one point in your life and you went through something very unfair, you are not the type of person to sit around forever and woe is me and blaming everyone. It's just not something that you're going to be attracted to. So no matter the traits, whether they're overt or covert, you will not be attracted to this person when you become healthy. You'll be able to spot what they're doing and how it is unhealthy. So this gets very easy when you work on yourself. Because once you're working on yourself, it's just something that you can spot, because you're basically looking for yourself in another person. The females have this ability to know exactly, especially when, I don't want to say they're dealing with men, because I think, look, if they're dealing with women, it can really be the same thing. When you're wounded, you're craving that emotional bond. You're craving that connection. And obviously, if we go into relationships, even friendships, that we want bonds with people, we want to be able to connect. And she does know this. So she does have an ability to kind of smell, whether it's your wounds or whether it's just like the general overview of a relationship, that this person wants to have a bond with me, that she's going to do things in order for you to feel amazing, so you can almost become addicted to her. The hard part with dating, friendships, all of that is what we just talked about, is can you be in a relationship with someone and not let yourself fully go into that relationship where you allow bad behavior to happen? So this is where we will overlook red flags, is when we kind of just, I don't want to say give up, but And I don't want to say that you need to always have one eye open and like look out for things, but you do need to be aware of when things are happening that are not okay, that you're not willing to tolerate. That's just called having standards and having boundaries. And that's something that you should have for the rest of your life. I don't care how long you're with a person, because you are your own responsibility. You are your own best friend. You are the one in charge of your life and your happiness. And I don't care how long you've been with another person. So when she is giving you all these things and it feels amazing, are you on a high? And are you able to see what are her patterns? Are you learning who she is? Are you learning that when she feels uncomfortable, this is what she does? And if it's something that you don't like, do you confront it head on? Because I'm going to tell you right now too, if you really want to make sure that you don't repeat the same mistakes all over again, confront things head on. Want to talk about something, work on something. Don't just sweep things under the rug like you've always done in other relationships, because the more you hold someone accountable, vice versa, then the more this person is not going to want to stay with you, and they're going to leave because you hold them accountable. You bring everything to the forefront, and they don't want to see any of that. The problem is that if you're not doing any of this and you're wounded, you're unhealed, and you're going to anything, friendship, sister, mother, romantic, doesn't matter, and she hooks you, now you're kind of screwed, because now you're unhealed, you're loving all of this, and now she's able to slowly start chipping away. So she's going to give you the silent treatment when she gets upset. She's going to give you some like little jabs. She's going to throw some comments at you. She's going to criticize you here and there. You're just going to start to see how you become the problem. She might start flirting with other people in front of you. She might disappear when you need her. Like, she's no longer reliable like she used to be. You're no longer the like center of her universe like you used to be. And this is where, I don't want to say a discard is happening, but this is the abusive cycle, where it's the love bombing, then it's the devalue, which means she's doing things that are not okay, that you don't like, that you don't appreciate, but you're not saying anything. And if you do say something, maybe you just don't like hold her accountable, or you don't like follow through with a boundary or a standard that you're like putting in play. So you're showing her inconsistency. So she's still attracted to you, or she's not necessarily attracted to you, but she's still going to be in somewhat of a relationship with you because you are giving her some things in some way. And one of those things that you might be giving her is just that you're so easygoing. You're so passive. You so let things just like slide, and you don't ever say, hey, look, I don't like this. Isn't what I want, because you're in fear of her leaving you. There's 3 things that majority of female narcissists will do that will kind of create the drama. This is where these are things she's going to do that's just going to push your buttons. You may not see it in the very beginning. You may just get like so in the relationship that you just let these things like go, but these are the things that are going to build up over time. She's always going to dismiss how you feel because she doesn't really care, because this is a lack of empathy. She's going to overlook anything that you need, your thoughts, like all of those things, because you are not important to her. She is going to very much use guilt to try to control you. Or straight up, she's just going to be drama central, absolutely chaotic. And this is the tantrum, essentially. This is what she's learned in order to try to control you. And all of these things are going to be completely emotionally draining for you. With any kind of a relationship with someone who's narcissistic, boundaries are so incredibly important, because if you don't have them, then you're going to get walked all over. That's it, period. You can just put an end to that sentence right there. But if you're in a relationship with someone like this, when you start working on boundaries and say, you know what, Steph, all right, I'm going to work on boundaries. I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to do the 1, 2, 3 and really focus on myself. You are going to get immense amount of pushback, because you are changing. When you have boundaries, that means that, well, now I care, and now I'm not okay with this. And you're going to behave differently when you're around her. So you're not going to give her what you used to give her, and she's not going to like that. So, and this is the case with anyone that's unhealthy or toxic or narcissistic, if that offends someone. But I'm just saying, like, you're going to get some heavy pushback coming your way. If your happiness is more important than that pushback, then it'll bug you, it'll upset you, you'll go through all the feelings, all the emotions, and you might do really good at it one day, you might do really bad at it one day, but you don't care. You're kind of getting to the place where you're starting to accept that maybe this relationship isn't going to be the way it used to be. And you're actually okay with that because you just want to work on you and focus on yourself in order to really change. I will say, if you are struggling with this whatsoever and you need a handhold and you need someone to teach you how to do this step by step, bit by bit, day to day, click the links down below. Start working with me. I have all my coaching programs listed down below. There's so many options, so many different price points and everything. So if you are really serious about doing this work and not only just understanding this person, but really working on yourself and healing your own stuff, I highly suggest clicking those links and investing in yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad also that we're putting this on YouTube. So we're going to be doing some interviews. I have a podcast coming soon with Jason and I, which I know you guys were like really interested in that. And I just have completely forgot about it. I feel like after Christmas and like the new year, it just has been on the back burner, but I'm going to get that out to you guys because you guys really want to like meet him and for us to have this kind of convo. So I'm so glad to give that to you guys, but I hope you are well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. See me in the next podcast episode. So on YouTube, the podcast is going live on, well, actually, let me say the podcast is on like Spotify, all the things on Friday. So every new podcast comes out on Friday, and then that episode will go live on YouTube on the following Tuesday. And then, of course, every Thursday, we have our normal YouTube video that goes live as well. So we have some guests coming on in the next couple months. Like, I'm kind of excited. Like, it's going to be a good year. Like, and I'm not just saying this because it's January and I feel like we all are hopeful. I'm just super excited for 25. I don't know what it is with me, but I hope you are too. I hope you are, again, I hope you're well wherever you are and whatever stage of life you are at. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.